We're getting right into it. So I mentioned that you've been knighted twice. Yes. At the Vatican. Okay. So this is story time. This is awesome. I heard a little bit about it. I'm going to catch up on the rest right here. So I don't even know where to start. I've never met anybody that's been knighted ever, and I've never met anybody that's been inside the Vatican either. So You're the first. Tell us about it. Knighted twice at the Vatican. Where do you even start with that?
So I have done a lot for humanitarian services, unification in different countries, as well as scientific projects. So I have spoken numerous times at the Science Pontification Academy at the Vatican. And through that, met the Secretary of State, the Pope, a lot of the cardinals, and they ended up knighting me twice. Once was Portugal, which is one of the countries that then became a city, and they've changed throughout the years. So If you look at knightings, Montenegro was another knighting that I had from the Vatican. And it's because you have your royal families in Europe, and then also the Vatican is part of that. Usually one of the sons goes to the Vatican historically. And so they still maintain the ability to do knightings of certain people. It's not common, really. So it was a surprise to me. It was a different experience. Ted Baker, who I work with, went with me because I was a little nervous the first time. But it's really trying to unify the world, because the Vatican is one of the most powerful, not just religions, but political branches in the world.
No kidding. So, all right, I don't know how much you can tell us, how many, as far as details go and all that kind of stuff, but all right, so how does one even get considered to do something like that? Is it, you can't apply for it, right?
No. You have to be nominated, and then they have to decide, the family has to decide if they're going to do the knightings. It's we also received awards from the Red Cross in different countries because of the things that have been done scientifically and from humanitarian services. But yeah, I couldn't find anyone to talk to about it. Now in Europe, some of the people understand, and I have met a couple of people since then. And after the knighting, we had a private dinner, lunch, and then a dinner at the Vatican where I sat with the other people that had been knighted. They brought in other individuals like Robert Grant, who started the company that developed Botox, right? He was a CEO. He sat next to me. So it was a very different situation to be sitting next to people and them saying, okay, you're now in the family together. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm really cautious, because as a scientist, my loyalty is to the United States, but it is to humanity as well. So mostly I've weighed in on different scientific and humanitarian projects and strategically guided different situations because of the knightings.
That is there, so, all right, inside, you've seen parts of the Vatican that are not open to the public, right? Yes. So, anything you can tell us there?
Well, I want to tell you one of the most interesting things was I was taken on a private tour of where all the popes have lived and stayed, and I saw their private quarters, and they gave me a historical educational tour where it was just me. And basically one of the apostoles of the Vatican, which is like the right hand to them. I mean, the Vatican, guys, has like the CIA in it. They have all the different services like we do, right? As the United States. And I think I was pretty ignorant until I was invited into this world. And people ask me, how was I invited? I don't know. They invited me first to do scientific projects and evaluations, and then the knighting occurred. But it was kind of an interesting conversation. And like I said, I was nervous because you hear so many theories, and some of the conspiracy theories have a grain of truth, right? And so I was nervous about the whole thing because my ethics, my morals are very centered in God, and theirs are too. But you have good and bad people in every religion, in every country, and I feel like through both of those knightings, as well as the things that I've done with the Red Cross, and prime ministers and presidents in different parts of the world, I've been exposed to a lot of good people. So I think for me, it's been great to see things that you read about that maybe aren't true, and vice versa. Do you know what I mean? Because we're exposed to television and we're exposed to social media, but not everything we read and see is accurate.
Come on with it, right? So, well, let's just kind of let's stay right there for a minute, because we could get knee deep in the weeds in science, okay? But let's go another route. Let's because that's just a part of who you are and a part of what you do, right? So, and honestly, your perspective is so unique, just because you've seen the world through a different lens than most of us get to see it through, right? So I would be a fool not to expose that gift that you have today to share with other folks, including myself, when we do that. Because I was telling you before we started shooting, with the experience we've had at the National Prayer Breakfast in D.C., just talking to so many other, we've been able to be fly on the wall with world leaders in other rooms, and just seeing the perspective of the United States from their point of view changed me.
Yeah.
So you mentioned everything that, we talked about before, paid programming. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that is basically what we're looking at. That's what social media is. That's what TV is.
Right.
Right. So
correct. Yes.
So what advice would you have for folks that is where we get that's our sources of information?
Yeah. It's hard to find the right information. So what I've done like when I go to different countries, I watch the news. I read the newspaper. I am able to read different languages. I'm not great at speaking different languages, but because like I used to spend 6 to 7 weeks a year in Russia and Ukraine. Mm. So after a while, you get used to their language. You start understanding it. But I like to pay attention to what their media says when I'm in these countries, which is very different
right.
than in fact, it's shocking. Like when I was in Syria and Lebanon, going over there, watching theirs compared to ours, there's just always two sides to a story.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in a Middle Eastern country, for example, it's very different what you would see in that country versus Israel.
Right.
I mean, they're all in the same area, but they're very different religious beliefs, political beliefs. And what I've learned is there's good humans almost anywhere. Really. And I feel like we victimize, or we almost criminalize all these other people in countries, and there's good people everywhere. Like I co-produced a movie on Ukraine and the women and children, but the truth is there's victims on both sides. There's heroes on both sides. And one of the things I have to say to Americans is we have done a really good job at helping other countries. Mm-hmm. We keep looking at there's so much fear right now. It's fear-based, right? And yes. I always say, let's not be fear-based. Let's be human beings that are evolving to create change that's really going to impact our world. I feel like we're at a pivotal change. I'm going to the UAE. I'm meeting with His Highness, which is their royal family, also their political leaders. Leadership. They're called His Highness. So just so everyone knows, if you're in the Middle East and someone's called His Highness, they're either a major diplomat from another country or they're actually part of their royal family. And only 17% of the people in the UAE, whether it's Abu Dhabi or Dubai or any of the 7 provinces, are really Emiratis, right? There's only 17%. And they are a royal family that still drinks the urine from a camel. I don't know if people know that. Like they don't drink the beginning of the urine. They drink the middle of the urine. They don't drink the end because they feel like it cleanses them. That's part of their culture. If you believe everything about one religion and think they're all horrible, then you really haven't opened your eyes. And I always believe you've got to pay attention and see what's really going on. And there's good people that have different religious beliefs than us. We've impacted them in a positive way, and we need to keep doing it. The United States is not a villain in every war. I understand we've done things that people disagree with about giving, like, for example, weapons, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's happened in the United States too. You know, if you go to the projects, not to switch gears, but there's more guns in the projects, and I don't think there's as much scrutiny.
Right.
And it's the same way with other countries. But I also think we need to remember we've got good guys over here too.
That's right.
Regardless of your belief, if it's Democrat or Republican, we have really good people that step up and make the right decisions, and we need to be proud of that. And understand that we still have an edge in some of the areas, but we need to keep that edge by continuing to really be pioneers that are helping in everything from economics to science. I don't want us to lose that edge.
That's right.
As scientists. That's why I'm willing to speak at the World Economic Forum. I've spoken twice.
Wow.
If you ask me why, I feel like one of my favorite books in the Bible is Esther. And if you read the book of Esther, she went in to help her people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people disagreed with that, right? But ultimately, she had her goal, and that was to help her religion and what they were doing to help others. And that's how I feel. I almost died of cancer. I had a brain tumor, lost a child, and that's when my life changed. I decided I'm going to use the gifts God gave me to really impact the world and to learn more and bring it back to the United States.
There is Live Out Loud Brooke is what I know her by, a great author. She defined the definition of impact better than I've ever heard it. She said it's when you take your God-given uniqueness and apply it to the marketplace. And I thought that was just absolutely
I love
beautiful.
that because we're each so different and we each have such a gift to bring. I feel like if I could do one thing for humanity, it would be to make each person understand how important they are to this puzzle. I always say we're an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle because God made all of us. But every person is so important, and I feel like we've forgotten that. You know, you rate everyone on social media, their picture looks good or it looks bad, but truly it's the human spirit and the energy that we have that's so amazing.
So, my wife is a superhero that just doesn't wear the cape, right? So, but, and like, you know, I'm in the middle of a big deal and product launch with a large company, and I'm on the road 2 to 3 weeks a month right now through the end of the year myself. So there's always, I want to speak to the parents out there because it's always a struggle. Like when I'm present at home, sometimes I feel guilty that I'm leaving the work family. And it's the same struggle where it's tug of war back and forth, right? Yeah. So Dr. Christina, you think from a global standpoint, when I can say I don't, I think bigger than most, and I'm thinking from a country standpoint, you're thinking even bigger than I am, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to, I think the word balance is the wrong word, but that's the one people are associated with, right? Yeah. So you're a wife, you're a mother. Talk to me about the relationship with your husband, how you guys can balance those things, and how you're able to apply that to the workforce. And 22 companies, 92 countries, 8 patents, 8 books. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's believable because of God. I have to say that again. It is unbelievable for a person. I think that I had a major challenge, when I got sick when I was sick at a young age. I had a lot of obstacles. I have not had this perfect life at all. I've worked for what I have. But I say I have, it's not even my gifts, right? It's for someone else. I want to say this though. I have amazing children. I have 4. Duquesne's almost 29, my oldest. My youngest
turned, hold on. How old?
20. I have a 29, 25-year-old, 20 and 19-year-old, 3 boys and a girl.
Good gracious.
And they are phenomenal. My third son had cancer. He's alive. He went to Britwin Academy. My daughter, they found a tumor in my spinal cord when I was pregnant with her. My oldest son, I lost the twin when I had him. They've been amazing. So I think God touched me at this age, and like literally what I knew was my goal was to help other parents and other people really understand healthcare. I just felt that like this is something I can help with. Yeah. So I don't really think it has to do with me being bigger at all. I think it has to do with, we all have this mission, right? Like you're doing your mission, and we're all equally important. It says our hands are all, like the fingers are all equally important, right?
That's right.
But for me, it was this feeling of, if I'm going to be alive and I'm going to live here, what am I going to do? Oh. And that's where I have guilt. I'm sure you understand that. As a mother, I worked for pharmaceutical and biotech, so I traveled a lot then too. They were really wonderful to me. I know people have like negative things right now to say about that industry, but they hired people to help me with my kids so my kids could travel with me. I actually breastfed all 4 children for at least a year. Wow. Some of them for 2 years. I don't think my job was any harder though, and I want to make sure that the audience hears this, than a stay-at-home mom. My sister was a stay-at-home mom, and she did so many things I wish I would have done. Like she was so amazing at helping the community and the world. She still is. She's a teacher right now after her kids grew up. But I give so much credit to mothers. I have to say this. They're always juggling, and to fathers. Fathers are the warriors. They are the providers. What happened to me was because of sickness and illness, and then it caused me to really explain to my children, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. Another thing that happened with me is I really raised my kids to be self-sufficient when they were younger because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so we had these continuous conversations. I think they're very close to me. They work with me. Yeah. We see, like tonight, we're going and having dinner and spending time together as a family. So we are really, really close. A lot of women, I think, would say, how could she be close when she worked like that? I continuously prayed. Another thing about me is I pray at least 2-3 hours a day, at night and in the morning, because that's the only way I was able to get through being that sick. And so, again, we each have different lives and different I don't feel like I've balanced everything successfully. I think I'm always asking forgiveness because I'm human.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I'm trying, but I fail in one area or the other every day.
That's such it's so beautifully said though. Like that's awesome. That's just absolutely awesome. And so my wife and I's relationship is the best now that it's ever been, right? And our daughter is my wife's 44. I'm only 43 for at least a couple more weeks.
My husband's
right?
younger than me too.
So, so that was our thing is if we hadn't had our daughter by the time we were 40, we were going to look at other options or just figured that wasn't for us and do something else. And then boom, a month before my wife's 40th birthday, we found out she was coming. Right. So it was a beautiful thing, but man, has that, we didn't realize how much time we had when there was only one kid to take care of. Right. And you've got twice what we have. Where I'm going with this is it's made my wife and I level up our relationship. Yeah. It's a skill. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes us coming together and making sure that we're going in the same destination at the same time in the same direction. As they say in small churches, we're all singing out of the same hymn book, right?
Right. Yeah.
Talk to me about how I think this is something, because I think some of the most talented and gifted people out there are selling themselves short. And like the only way you could do what you've done, you said, is you put your faith. You just doubled down on your faith. Right. So talk to me about how you and your husband have been able to navigate through all this, right? Because he's got hopes and dreams too, I'm sure. Right. And I haven't met him yet.
Well, he owns Root.
There you go.
So he owns it by himself, with different entities that he owns. And he is a businessman, that's very charismatic, lots of energy. He loves me. So I have to say this, having someone that loves me regardless is huge for me. And I think he's largely responsible for the success of not just the Root brands, but the different things that I've done, because he's my biggest fan. And I hope I'm his biggest fan too. He's this ball full of energy. When we met you, that's why Joy was like, he reminds us of Clay. Like he's just full of life. He's full of energy. And he's a Christian. He was not raised like I was raised. He was raised in an environment that he wasn't. I have Bible study downstairs at the kitchen table at 6:00 every morning.
Okay.
Clay was not raised around that. So it's interesting to watch him like be around different situations and really evolve as a human being. Because I think the longer and the more you have a touch point with God, the more time you spend with him, right? Yeah. The more we each grow. And he's just, honestly, without him, I wouldn't be here in these companies. I wouldn't have 22 companies. I wouldn't have traveled to 92 countries. It's like you and your wife. You have to be on the same page. Listen, we argue sometimes. We sometimes don't get along. It's, in my opinion, it's a misunderstanding to say people constantly get along. You have to work at it, right? Because we're human. And it's a lot of work. I would say having children and my personal relationships are the hardest thing in my life. Yeah. Science is easy to me. Meeting with governments to share what I really feel like we need to do as human beings and as basically our world is evolving is easy, even the financial part for me. But it's the people I love the most that it's the hardest, right? And so we definitely are constantly reevaluating the situation, and we make changes. Yeah. And let's be honest, sometimes those are hard, right? Those are hard. So we don't always travel together. I have to give kudos to him because he lets me travel. And I say lets me, I have to, right? Because I'm the one invited to go to a lot of these situations and meetings. And I don't know if I would be as patient and understanding as he is. He holds everything together. He is a alpha male. So when people meet me,
he'd have to be. Yeah.
He's never, he's just such a great, energetic person. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like he's always talking about me and I don't bring him up enough. He's a really great person that does amazing things. And like you and your wife, we have really had to stick together